She laughed when he walked into the courtroom wearing his torn U.S. Army uniform. She didn't even lower her voice, mocking him as her lawyers smirked beside her, confident the case was already won. The soldier stood silently at the plaintiff's table as the courtroom settled. His name was Sergeant First Class Daniel Harper, an infantry squad leader with 18 years in the United States Army, 3 deployments to Iraq and 1 to Afghanistan. He had kicked in doors, cleared buildings, and carried wounded soldiers through gunfire. On his final deployment, an IED detonated beneath his patrol vehicle, crushing his left leg and shattering his spine. 2 soldiers were trapped inside the burning truck, and Harper dragged them out before collapsing. He survived, but his injuries never healed. After his medical discharge, Harper was transferred to VA care. At first, appointments came, then delays, then silence. Paperwork disappeared, claims were denied, and appeals were ignored. The pain worsened, leaving him unable to work or sleep. He lost his job, then his apartment, and eventually everything. For nearly 3 years, he lived on the streets, invisible to the government he once served. Then, on a cold November morning outside a federal VA building, a government SUV skidded on wet pavement, slammed into a concrete barrier, and flipped onto its side. Smoke poured from the engine as a woman screamed inside. People gathered and filmed, but no one moved. Standing nearby was Sergeant Daniel Harper. Recognizing the danger, he ignored the pain in his leg and limped toward the vehicle. Using a broken signpost, he smashed the window, cutting his hands as he freed the jammed seatbelt and dragged the woman out just seconds before the vehicle burst into flames. The crowd erupted as the woman collapsed on the pavement, shaking and sobbing. She asked his name, and after he told her quietly, he disappeared into the crowd. She never forgot him. Her name was Margaret Lell, Assistant Secretary overseeing regional VA operations. 2 weeks later, Harper walked into a VA office to renew his disability claim. The administrator frowned and loudly told him they no longer handled cases like his, ordering him to leave despite his calm insistence that he had an appointment. She laughed and called security, and Harper walked out without protest. The next day, a lawsuit was filed. In court, the VA's attorney confidently claimed that protocol had been followed and that incomplete records meant there was no obligation to provide continued benefits. The judge leaned forward and asked calmly if paperwork alone determined whether a man deserved medical care. When the attorney faltered, the judge reminded the court that Harper had served with honor and saved a life while the agency denied him care and publicly humiliated him. The verdict was swift and decisive: full restoration of benefits, back pay, damages, federal oversight, mandatory reform, and a formal public apology entered into the record. As Sergeant Harper exited the courtroom, Assistant Secretary Margaret Lell stood waiting and softly told him that he had saved her life. Harper nodded once and replied quietly, "Just doing my duty,"